All right, coming up tonight. Whoa, wait a second. Where's Kaufman? I'll try this. I got this. Ready? Like a good co-host, Kaufman is here. Damn it. Kaufman. Can I get a Kaufman?
Damn it, Brendan. How many times do I need to tell you?
I know, not to do the State Farm commercial while you're doing your makeup.
Well, as long as I'm here. We got a big show on the way. It's a Francesa Friday, big MLB slate, and of course, we're getting you ready for Week 4 in the NFL.
Oh, coming up on the Sweat. Hey, whatever, man. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, good to see you. All right, welcome into the Sweat. I'm Adam Kaufman. He is Brendan Glasheen. We have got a ton coming up for you over the course of the next hour. It's good to be with you guys on a Friday, really. Iconic sports talk host Mike Francesa from The Fan in New York. He's going to join us later on in the show, talk some football. But we'll start with a few other dudes chatting pigskin. Jeff Ulrich, Reed Fowler, and Andy McNamara from TSN. Hey, gents. Reed, it's good to see you back where you belong, pal.
Thanks.
Well, listen,
the iconic Jeff Ulrich is how I like.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about Jeff there.
Yeah, no, I don't want you to think I'm being mean here, Reed. It takes a chimp to do this job. We need real analysis. That's why you're in that seat. I mean, you know. All right,
I know. I mean, if I can give you guys analysis, then I
might be disappointed then.
I like how you just totally ignored Jeff.
Setting Jeff up today.
I've been ignoring Jeff for years. Why start paying attention now? We'll start with the NFL spin move, all right? The fantasy spin on the league's top stories. First up, it's Titans cut Rashard Matthews. He only had 11 yards in 3 games. So which of Marcus Mariota's remaining receivers actually interest you this week other than Corey Davis? Jeff, go ahead.
I can't ignore me now. I got the floor.
Well, I gave you the floor.
This is a big spot for Taywan Taylor. I mean, he was trending up in snap count before this Rashard Matthews drama even happened. Played over 50% of the snaps last week. And if you saw preseason, you're probably wondering why it took so long for Tennessee to even get this guy to the starting role. I mean, he's dynamic after the catch runner. He's someone who can take a screen pass, to the house. So he fits it perfectly with Marcus Mariota because Marcus Mariota sucks at throwing the ball downfield anyways, so he can just throw him a ton of small screens. I don't love targeting this game, but Taywan Taylor should get moved into an every down role. We're like a 70% role, which would just be huge for his upside at 4K in my opinion. So I love the bump for Taylor this week.
Reed, give me some of that super hyped up analysis that I put out there for you. Are you into Taylor too?
Yeah, I think he presents some upside. Jeff's right, though. Like with Mariota's, I think 6 yards per completion puts him behind Blake Bortles. I mean, if you there's a comparison right there, and that's where you kind of fit Mariota, right? Another guy that I'm potentially looking at that really hasn't seen any production is Jonnu Smith. Yes, he hasn't panned out. He's seeing 91% of the snaps. So if you want to go low, if for whatever reason you want to attack this game, the front seven of Philadelphia is really good. They're going to put pressure on Mariota. They're going to bring a lot of things up, and they're going to push everything to the middle. And that's where you see potentially Jonnu Smith. Mariota's targeted his tight end 100-plus times over the last 3 or 4 years. Again, it's not Delaney Walker. Jonnu Smith is not Walker. Don't get me wrong, but if you're looking for some value at tight end, he could present some upside only in GPPs, though. So he'd be the other guy if not Taywan Taylor.
Andy, Taylor, Smith, anybody else?
Well, guys, it's a lot of potential, right? A lot of ifs and maybes. And I don't love really any of these Titans receivers in this game in particular. But the only one I think that makes sense is Corey Davis, just because he more than doubles anybody else, right? And it's, okay, Taylor's at 10, and I liked him in the preseason too. Jonnu Smith should be doing more, but he isn't. So if I'm taking the maybes out of it, the only one I would look to play is Corey Davis, and I don't even love that. So that, personally, I'd probably stay away from the whole side of the Titans.
All right, let's talk same game, just different uniforms now. Eagles running back Jay Ajayi is planning to play this week despite a fracture in his back. Is there any interest in him, Reed, at 5,500?
Zero. I like the 4 guys directly below him, and even if you look at that backfield, you have 3 potential active running backs that could see time. Like, he's going to be on a snap count. We've seen him injured before, and he's extremely touchdown dependent. I understand that when you look at the teams that Tennessee has played in terms of their run defense, not that good, right? Atlanta, yes, they have Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman, but when you have Peyton Barber coming through, you have the running back carousel in Indianapolis, your defense is going to look pretty good. Tennessee's defense is actually looking pretty good, especially against the running back. They're 4th best or 3rd worst, for opposing running backs. They're only giving up 15.8 DK fantasy points to the running backs as a whole. That doesn't really pan out well, especially if Ajayi is on a snap count. You really can't trust them. There's guys on this slate that are cheaper, that have more potential value. The 4 guys below them, like I mentioned, are more appealing to me. So I'm going to fade this and say no.
Andy, interest in Ajayi?
No, fractured back guys, right? Not only snap count, is he going to stay healthy? Like Peterson loves committees. Like, we don't know what combo. We don't know the workload. Carlos Hyde's $5,500 on the DK contest too. Same price. He's a bell cow. You go James White. Rex Burkhead's gone for the Patriots on IR. James White's been producing more. I'm not touching them.
I would not walk to the fridge for a beer with a fractured back, let alone play in a football game.
Jeff, let's get your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, if you're going to play a Philly RB, it'd probably be Wendell Smallwood for me, just because he outplayed Corey Clement last week. He's going to be involved in the pass game. I'm not really targeting anyone in this game on the Philly side, but it would be Smallwood for me. Ajayi, again, injury concerns, no PPR value. It's a bad matchup. Not much more needs to be said.
All right.
Okay, Jeff.
Good. I can't.
So
I want
positive.
to, I can't. All right, Seahawks wideout Doug Baldwin says he is a go for Week 4, 5,500. Reasonable for him at the Cardinals. I mean, we're talking about Arizona with one of the league's stingiest defenses against receivers, Andy.
Yeah, like Baldwin, on a good day, I don't usually like to trust any Seahawk receivers or anybody outside of Russell Wilson to begin with that offensive line. But again, we're talking about a guy coming back. Is there going to be snap count issues? If he's fully healthy, sure, Arizona, in general, they've sucked. They've been terrible. But what about a guy who's the same price or a bit cheaper, Michael Crabtree, going up against Pittsburgh's Civ-like defense, right? Like, yeah, I think there's better options. Why take the chance on a snap count? Why take the chance of a re-injury or whatever the case might be? Even with the good matchup, I'm probably going to steer away.
Worth the risk here, Reed?
No, I don't think it is. Andy hit the nail on the head, right? This guy, Baldwin, has been noted to saying, hey, look, I want to play, but it's not up to me, right? That's kind of scary where you don't know what his snap count's going to be. If it's up to the trainers, it's really a game-time decision. If you're setting lineups early, for whatever reason. What I do like this, though, is for the Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett stack. Patrick Peterson was probably going to be on Lockett if Baldwin was out. If Baldwin's in, like, Peterson might still be on Lockett because he might be the 1A in that offense right now. But when you have Baldwin there, I don't think that Peterson goes on Lockett. So I do like that stack. It's a lot cheaper when you're looking at potential stacks. And Arizona's defense, yes, it's good, but their secondary is hurting a little bit. They bring those secondary guys down. So if you got a guy like Tyler Lockett who can really take the top off of defense, I like that a lot more as opposed to playing Baldwin.
What do you say, Smallwood fan? You trying to save some cash here?
I am, actually. I'm more bullish on this situation than most people. Look, when Baldwin comes back, he's a huge upside. He increases Russell Wilson's upside tremendously. And Wilson is the dual threat running back that everyone loves. He can throw for 300 yards and rush for 100 yards in the ideal circumstances. He's torched Arizona in the past, too. So I'm a little bit more bullish on the situation. I think Doug Baldwin coming back, I think he will play a lot of snaps, and he tends to play out of the slot and avoid Patrick Peterson when they do play Arizona. I think Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin stack, maybe come back with David Johnson on the other side. I don't think that's so outlandish this week, personally. I think it's very cost effective, and we've seen it go off in the past in this matchup.
All right, last spin move for you guys. It's been over a week since Baker Mania hit Cleveland with free beer, and now Baker Mayfield is set to make his first career start Sunday in Oakland. Good value at $5,300. Reed, you first.
I think the price, yes, but again, we're talking about Baker Mayfield making his first start, so the ownership really is gearing towards him being the second highest on the slate past Andy Dalton, especially in this range. So I don't like the ownership necessarily because Dalton's right there. So if you're going to eat the chalk, I'd rather do that on price alone. This might really be a chance to swerve up and pay up for quarterback, which is what I usually don't do. I usually like to go out in this area, but now you're seeing guys in plus matchups like Baker and Dalton getting a lot of ownership. So Aaron Rodgers, right? Phillip Rivers, these guys who are more expensive, but have a fraction of the ownership and better in plus matchups as well. I'd rather pay up there as opposed to eat that chalk for Baker. I think he does well, but I just don't want that chalk. All
right, we have limited time, guys. Let's be quick here. Let's go to
just
Andy next.
New thoughts. Well,
for Baker, here's what I like about him, and I agree with Reed on the Andy Dalton price. I think it's a great price point. But for Baker, John Gruden has said it, there's no pass rush. He's going to be comfortable. And you saw what he did without practicing with the ones yet against the Jets. Now he's going to have a whole extra week, pushes the ball downfield. I'm buying at 5,300 this week.
Jeff?
Yeah, typical Reed doesn't answer the question. The question is he good value 5,300? Absolutely, he's good value. Is he going to be chalky? Maybe, but that's your decision if you want to eat the chalk or not. He's a good value play this week, though.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the re-jab in the process. Stay put. More NFL later on in the show, but MLB is on the way right now. We got Matt LaMarca of the Action Network and Greg Ehrenberg. We are chasing, we are fading, we're just having a jolly old time. First one is going to be for you, Matt, so welcome in. Despite a number of options over 10K like Garrett Cole, Hyunjin Ryu, you got Patrick Corbin, Jay Happ, another, you don't have to pay up tonight for quality pitching. What do you say, chase or fade?
I'm going to fade this. I'm a firm believer in paying up for the top pitchers just because their upside is so hard to match. Cheap hitters go yard, they get RBIs all the time, but very rarely do you see a cheap pitcher, throw a double-digit strikeout game. So we've also got two pitchers tonight in just excellent spots. Hyunjin Ryu taking on San Francisco. Their projected lineup has just a 249 WOBA and 30.8% strikeout rate against lefties over the past 12 months. He leads all pitchers on FanDuel in what we call K prediction. So I really like him. And then Patrick Corbin is also in a great spot against the Padres. So, it's going to be hard for me not to pay up for one of those two guys.
All right, fading all day. How about you, Greg?
Yeah, so normally I would agree with Matt here because I think like 95% of the time I'm also on board with paying up for the higher price pitching. There's a couple of things that I have to disagree with. Number one, promoting the wrong website. Also, if you look at the high price options today, there's none that I really feel all that comfortable with. Like Garrett Cole, I think he would be a great play for this earlier in the season, except I don't know how deep they're going to let him work into the game. Ryu, I also have issues with paying that expensive of a price tag for any Dodgers pitcher who isn't Clayton Kershaw because they typically don't let them work very deep into the games. And the other thing also is looking at the offenses. There are only a couple I really want to target, and it's the teams that have something to play for right now. So one of the offenses that we're about to talk about that I really like, they're very expensive. So to get them into my lineups, I need to play cheaper pitching tonight.
All right, Greg, let's go right back to you. Chase or fade, the Colorado Rockies, they have outfielder David Dahl. He's the seventh most expensive hitter on the slate. But the best offensive option at 5,400, is that the case?
So I really like the Rockies as a whole tonight, and I do like Dahl, but I'm going to fade the terminology here of him being the number one hitter to target on the slate. I think that the best guy to target is somebody who's on the Rockies and is the same price as David Dahl, and that's Charlie Blackmon. And it's not really a knock against Dahl, except he's very expensive at 5,400. We don't have a ton of sample size on him being an elite hitter, whereas Charlie Blackmon, in terms of a fantasy producer, has been one of the best in baseball for a lot of years in a row now. So Blackmon, who averages about 1.5 more DK points per game over Dahl, I'll lean towards him as being the best hitting play on the slate.
Action, Matt, chase or fade on Dahl?
I totally agree with everything that Greg said. I don't even think Dahl is the best outfielder on his own team right now. So give me Blackmon at the same price. If you look at his production at Coors against right-handed pitchers, historically he's averaged 11.45 DraftKings points. When the Rockies have been applied for at least 6 runs like they are tonight, that number increases to 12.5. So I think he's a steal at 5,400. That's a lot cheaper than we've seen with him at Coors in the past.
All right, Matt, let's kick it right back to you here. Chase or fade. The chalk will be stacking the Rockies, implied run total above 6. So you should instead stack the Astros in Baltimore because they're projected for 5. But damn it, they're cute and have a good opportunity.
I really like the Rockies tonight, but I don't think you have to stack them by any stretch. So I'm going to fade this. The pivot that I like, though, is the A's. They're taking on Jaime Barria. He's pitched to a 6.47 xFIP since the start of September. The top 5 batters in their lineup have all performed better against right-handers than left-handers over the past 12 months. And stacking their top batters is only going to cost you $21,006, while the Rockies are going to cost you $25,003. So you can save some money, get another really quality offense, and that'll allow you to get up to those top pitchers.
Yeah, and also the A's can't lose. I mean, literally cannot lose if they want to have a chance at being the home team, obviously, in the wild card game, because the magic number for the Yankees is just 1. That means 1 Yankees win or 1 A's loss. So there's still something to be played for there. What do you say, Greg?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think Kaufman made a really strong point that the Astros are cute, but even with that said, I still have to lean towards the Rockies. And the reason is just motivation. If I'm comparing the Astros to the Rockies offenses tonight, the Astros just don't have anything to play for, and I'm a little concerned how long are they going to let their starters play in the game? Like, if this is like a 5 or 6 run game, are they just going to pull their starters in the 5th or 6th inning? I think it's a very strong possibility. We know the Rockies are playing for the division right now. One more win and they get into the playoffs. So given their upside of having a 6.1 implied run total, I really like the spot for the Rockies tonight.
I got to question the whole motivation thing a little bit. Like, do we really think the Rockies guys are going to try harder to get hits tonight than they usually do?
So I think that's a fair question. I'll clarify by this. It's not that I think they're going to try harder to get a hit. It's that there's a lot of other teams I'm concerned, are they going to let their hitters play all 9 innings?
Okay, that's fair.
Oh, we're all getting along.
Lawyered. Nice going.
All right, guys, good stuff. We'll talk to you later on. We can talk later. For now, the DFS Edge Boys, led by Adam Levitan, are here with their conviction plays for Week 4 in the NFL.
So, Adam, what's your conviction play?
These perfect storm spots, I think, don't happen that often. So I have a lot of conviction around Sterling Shepard. Obviously, the Saints have the league's worst pass defense in terms of DVOA. Obviously, Marshawn Lattimore will be on Odell Beckham. PJ Williams and Ken Crawley have been rotating at the other spot when Sterling Shepard goes into the slot. Patrick Robinson is out for the year, the Saints slot corner. And this is a game where I expect the Giants to play somewhat well at home. So I think it makes sense to play well through Sterling Shepard. And I didn't even mention that Evan Ingram and his 5, 6, 7, 8 targets per game are out as well. So for all those factors, it just sets up so well for Sterling Shepard. On top of that, he's below 5K. So it's hard not to have a lot of conviction around Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, love that call. He will be most likely in my cash game teams, and I'll have a lot of exposure in tournaments. That makes a ton of sense. And like you mentioned, he's going to get more and more popular as the week goes on. It'd be easy to say Alvin Kamara is my conviction play, which I've done about 80% of the time the last 2 years. I will give you something different than that, even though he truly is my conviction play. I'm going to go with Tevin Coleman, the opposite of Giovanni Bernard, who I think is also a great play, which we'll talk more about. I think Tevin Coleman makes a lot of sense here in a shootout. He's been very unlucky in terms of touchdowns so far with Devontae Freeman out. And obviously, that's a key. I'm assuming Devontae Freeman is out. Tevin Coleman's involved in the passing game. You get a home favorite. I just think he's underpriced relative to where he should be given the opportunity. And Tevin Coleman finally gets into the end zone, not once, but twice this week as my conviction play. Al, what do you have for us?
I mean, those are nice conviction plays. They're not thrilling, but they're nice. To me, Giovanni Bernard is my conviction play for the week. Atlanta's allowed a league-high 255 running back receptions since the beginning of 2016. The past 2 weeks, against 2 pretty good pass-catching backs, Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara, they gave up like 28 or 29 receptions the last 2 weeks. Do we really think that changes now against Giovanni Bernard and the Cincinnati Bengals, who don't have Joe Mixon this week? You know, assuming that he stays out like he is expected to, Bernard saw 100% of the running back touches last week for Cincinnati. He will be heavily involved in the passing game because that's how you attack this Atlanta team, giving him the highest floor of any running back for only 6,300. To me, he is a 15-point floor this week with touchdown upside. He is a cash game lock and a tournament play for me as well.
All right, from the gridiron to the hardwood, NBA basketball is back. 2018.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, really.
Good to have it back.
It is.
Preseason it still counts.
A lot of drama. Tristan Thompson.
Always. NBA Twitter doesn't quit, man.
Tristan Thompson, I think, has been blowing up the Twitter sphere about the NBA. He thinks the Cavs are the favorites again in the East, so maybe we'll see Cavs Warriors round 4. He's not kidding. Anywho, let's welcome in Karen Phillips of the New York Daily News and Matt LaMarca. No, that's not Matt LaMarca. I'm sorry. I thought Matt was staying to talk about basketball. I guess not. Say that one more time. Hey, Alex. Sorry about that, man. Just a miscommunication. Thanks for coming on. He's of RotoWire. Well, that was awkward. Sorry. I mean, I sounded like Tristan Thompson getting a hot take saying it was someone, and it was not the person I was talking about.
It's not as awkward as what Tristan Thompson's been talking about. The guy's either delusional, ignorant, dumb, or the best dry humor comedian I've ever seen, because to say that they are still better than the Celtics, the Raptors, the Sixers.
But guys, like, what is Tristan Thompson supposed to say? Like, he's been to 4 straight finals. He has a ring. Now, the stuff about Boston, we know they're the best team in the East by far. But he wasn't lying about Philly. And then when it comes to Toronto, I mean, they've got a long history of letting us down. So I'm not really mad at Double T Kardashian for speaking his mind.
26th best championship odds.
Marcus Morris already went at him.
No chance. All right. Yeah, that was true. That was good out of Marcus Morris. Okay, guys, let's get to what we're actually here to talk about, and that's examining ADPs, gauging how you feel about them. We're going to strictly focus on players and teams in action tonight. There are not many. We're going to start with my beloved Boston Celtics. Jayson Tatum, one of the NBA's top rookies last season, averaged just over 27 DK points a game a year ago. Granted, he had a lot more opportunity than he may potentially get this year. What do you think of an ADP of about 40, Karin, in what's obviously a crowded lineup?
No, I personally think that's a little bit too low, but I get why that number is floating around. You think about the season they had last year. Kyrie's back. Gordon Hayward's back. You've got one of the best players and point guards in the NBA who will be healthy this year that he missed in the playoff run. And Gordon Hayward was an all-star in the West 2 years ago. And it's really, really hard to be an all-star in that conference. So your guess would be that, hey, the second year playing Jayson Tatum, his numbers are going to take a little dip. However, I think that the hierarchy in Boston, once this season gets going, is going to go Kyrie 1, and Tatum's going to be the second option. So I think it's a little bit too high for him right now, but I understand it. So I'm not surprised with it, but I just have this inclination that as the year goes on, Jayson Tatum's going to be even more prized commodity than he is right now.
Should tell you the starting five is out, by the way, for their preseason game. Shouldn't surprise anyone. It's the exact same starting five they had opening night last year when Gordon Hayward got hurt. Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Jayson Tatum, the guy we just talked about, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford. That's the group, and so should be most nights, I would think, during the season. But what do you think about this ADP of 40, Alex?
I think you can get him later than that. There are a lot of mouths to feed in Boston. I mean, I love Tatum as a player. I do have concerns about his pecking order to some extent. He should be 2 or 3 the whole year. I don't think that's really an issue. I think a lot of the problem with his ADP might stem from the fact that he's mostly a scorer, and scorers don't often translate well in fantasy necessarily. Like a guy like Harrison Barnes, he can get you like 19-8, 19-6, but he's like a 70, 80th ranked fantasy guy. So I think you can get him later than 40, but it wouldn't surprise me if he reaches that at some point in the year.
Yeah, Brad Stevens has his hands full as far as balancing these minutes.
I think this is what they call good problems to have.
Yeah, Brad Stevens has a really great problem he has to deal with this season.
That's true. Great for Brad Stevens, not so great for fantasy owners. I think that's fair.
Yeah. All right. Hey, the Hornets are the Celtics' opposition tonight. Alex, back to you. How does an ADP of 21 sound for Kemba Walker?
That sounds like very close to where you should be drafting him. I might slightly lean under. I mean, he's going to be the number 1 option. And my only concern about him is that if you draft him at 21, you're drafting him at his absolute ceiling. His stats and his production have kind of flatlined over the past 3 years. I just don't really know if he has much room to improve as a player. But yeah, I think if you get him at 21, it's hard to complain because he has a high floor as well.
Karin?
I feel the same way. Like, I like him at 21. I could see him being at maybe 23, 24, or even if someone just wanted to take him at like 18 or 19, like he's in that range that I would be looking at him at. In the same way, like he said something really good about that ceiling. Like Kemba Walker's been really good, but it's like the next step that some people might be waiting for him to achieve to. I don't actually know what that looks like. He's pretty much done all he can in Charlotte. And given that the talent or lack of talent that's been around him and the way that conference is, like, I don't really know what more you want him to do with what he has. Now, one thing that will be interesting is that he has a veteran backup point guard in Tony Parker. And I want to see if some of that mentorship is going to come from Parker. It's really going to elevate his game because it's really going to help you out when you got a future Hall of Famer on the bench and to whisper in your ear and can make your game better.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The Hornets made a little run last year right before the trade deadline, so they decided to hold on to him. Interesting to see if they don't get off to a good start, does Kemba go to a contender at some point? maybe in the middle of the season.
Something
I don't
maybe
know.
needs to be considered. Yeah, we'll think about it. A team that would be interested in acquiring more talent, maybe even reportedly expressing an interest in Jimmy Butler. Not that he's going to land there. Sixers, they're playing tonight as well. They're in Philly hosting Melbourne United, whoever the heck they are. Joel Embiid set a personal goal to win league MVP in the offseason, but Joel, see, the thing is you got to play. You got to play in games to do that. 63 last year, up from 31 as a rookie. Progress, I suppose, but still only about 3/4 of the season. Nevertheless, talented, and he puts up numbers. ADP of 15. Karn, is that too high?
My heart says that's just right, but my head is like, don't do it. Just for the simple fact, I looked up some numbers the other day on Joel Embiid. He's played 102 games in a Sixers uniform. When he does play, he's really, really good. But the question is he going to play? And I know we talk about these injuries, but the guy didn't play a lot in his 1 year at Kansas. And he transferred from Mount Verdi Academy, where Ben Simmons also went to high school, because he just wasn't good enough. So in terms of actually watching Joel Embiid play basketball at the high school, college, and NBA level, we don't have a lot of tape on the guy because he's just been hurt. So while 15 sounds like it's really good because this guy's an all-star, he's amazing when he's on the floor, but how much time is he actually going to be on the floor? Like your heart says do it, but when you look at the resume and you start thinking about it, like, is he worth the risk of taking him there if he's not going to be on the floor that much because his resume says he's not?
Can the man stay on the floor, Alex?
It's definitely risky to take him at 15, although he missed the last 8 games of the season because him and Markelle Fultz basically like smashed heads together. So before that, he was on pace to play about 71 games, which is a relatively healthy season when we put in context of big men, especially. He's a top 5 player in the conference. I think some people might even put him higher than that. He's a guy who, I mean, really, it sounds ridiculous to say, but he has a high floor and high ceiling. He averaged 20 and 10 for every month of the season last year. And he put up a 46 and 15 game against the Lakers with 7 assists and 7 blocks. I mean, the guy's a bona fide star. So if you take him at 15, there's a lot of risk there, but it could pay off. I mean, he could pay off as a top 3, 4, 5 fantasy player if he plays 75 games.
Poor guy just couldn't handle Aaron Baines in the playoffs, though. Just way too much. Shame. Landed on that couch. All right, the Hornets starters are out, by the way. I just want to give them to you. Yep, could have been a couch. Jeremy Lamb, Kemba Walker, Nick Batum, Marvin Williams, and Cody Zeller, for those of you getting your preseason slates ready. All right, thanks a lot, you hoop heads. Hate to let you go, but it's a special day. What do we call these things? Funky Fridays?
No.
Fresh Fridays? No. I'll just check it out. Mike Francesa here. That means it's a Francesa Friday. You know the sports pope from Mike's on WFAN in New York. Mike, it's nice to see you on the heels of a good Thursday night football game. I almost didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah, two quality teams. And right now, the Rams are playing better than anybody. I mean, they really have been. That game was a little more high scoring than I thought it would be, especially from the Minnesota side. But I thought the Rams would win. They're the hottest team right now, both sides of the ball. And I didn't know that much about McVay, I have to admit. And, I thought, wow, he's awful young. He reminds me, his impact on the Rams reminds me of what Bill Walsh did with the Niners starting, was 79, and his first year was, a lot worse than McVay's. He went 2-14, but you could see him building something, and he reminds me a little bit of that. He's almost that, a cross between Walsh and Sean Payton a little bit. He's dynamic. You can tell he has a big impact on his team. He's very involved in every facet. He really is very much a savant kind of guy with the offense, and I think they're headed for big things. They took a risk this year. They brought in some guys on defense who can be problems, but they've been able to integrate them into the culture, it seems, very well. And they're legitimate. There's no question about it. They are a very legitimate team. You can figure that there's a very good chance all roads in the NFC are going to go through the Rams.
So the Rams, they're 4-0 right now, first team in the league to reach that benchmark. The Chiefs and Dolphins, the only other unbeaten's at 3-0, but I'm guessing I don't even need to ask you which one doesn't belong.
It's funny when you're talking about the fish. it looks like they're doing it with mirrors, but again, that coach and that quarterback keep doing it. They keep winning. And you say to yourself, they're not impressive. They don't win the battle at the line of scrimmage a lot, but they have done a couple of things well. They are very fast offensively. They really can beat you in some, and that's where they made big plays last week. And they're very good in tight games. And, he's another coach who just seems to be very, very comfortable in tight games. He's done very well in those games, and they're better than people think. Now, Kansas City, the offense is working so well. The defense has been so bad. I expect Andy to try and really see if he can get the defense and improve it. But, you got a quarterback who's got 13 touchdowns and no picks. You're not going to lose. That's all there is to it. I mean, that's too explosive. That's too many points. And you got that going right now at such a high level. They have so many weapons. It's hard to see what they can take away. I'll be fascinated by this game this week because this is a climate. This is a place where it's hard to play offense if you're the opposition. It always has been. They have a legitimate pass rush. They have a loud crowd. I think this game will be a very good test. If they come out of this game and they throw another 38 up there, watch out.
Well, as far as the Finns, I mean, they're in Foxborough this weekend. The Patriots, they've looked terrible. Back-to-back double-digit losses on the road, something that, Mike, you just don't see under Bill Belichick. Would it be too much to say that this game is massively important for the Pats? I know we're still early in the year. We're in the first quarter, but Miami at 4-0, New England at 1-3, that would be a sizable gap.
It would. That's the first time they've lost double-digit games back-to-back double digits since 2001, I believe, or 2000. It's been that long. The thing that struck me was they're vulnerable on both sides of the ball right now. Their defense has been vulnerable in recent years, and he's good at building it up during the season by just getting guys to play their roles. He's very good at coaching his defense because he'll go in and say, here are the 4 things you have to do to win. If you do that, you'll win. And he can do that with a lot of different guys, and he'll teach guys during the season defensively. Offensively is the problem. Right now, you saw Patricia make sure Gronkowski couldn't get off the line of scrimmage. They had nowhere to go with the ball. Those were coverage sacks. They had nowhere to go. They don't have those little underneath Smurfs right now. And Tom Brady's greatest strength is he sees everything. He sees everything in real time quicker than most guys. And that's why he always hits those underneath guys, the Edelmans of the world, and gets them in full stride, and they make big plays. There's none of that right now. They have to have Gordon play well. If he doesn't, they don't have anybody who can get free. Tom didn't show a lot of faith in his wideouts the other day. He was afraid to let them make a play, and he didn't get Gronk any plays because Patricia said, listen, I'm not letting Gronk get off the line of scrimmage. They almost treated Gronk like it was a punt. They actually almost double-teamed him like they were stopping a gunner, at the line of scrimmage. So they didn't let him get off the line of scrimmage, and he got a little, I just think, upset about the way he was being manhandled. And they didn't have any offense. So to me, they looked more vulnerable both ways than they have in recent years. Now, a couple of things you always have to be careful of. Number one, they played without some key guys. If they're back this week, that makes a big difference, especially if Gordon plays, especially if Chung plays. The other thing is they have Dante Scarnecchia as the offensive line coach. He's a genius. And they're very good at building the defense up. So they will get better as the season goes on. But they might dig themselves a hole right now. And if Miami wins this game, watch out. I agree with you. This could be a very telling game. You know the Pats will get better. They have Brady. They have Belichick. But right now, and somebody mentioned it during the game the other night, it might have been Al, who said, if you just take Brady and Gronkowski off this team, what's there? And right now that's true, especially on the offensive side of the ball. There's not a lot there. They have clearly come back to the pack. I don't think there's any question.
All right, well, hey, this whole weekly Sports Pope thing is getting pretty fun.
Oh, I love it. I had the opportunity to chat with Mike earlier in the day, obviously. We didn't just shift gears that quickly, and I think he's still got a show going on anyhow. But always great insights. There's going to be plenty more from Mike. It wasn't just that. We chatted for quite a while, so you'll expect to hear more from him in the Sunday sweat in the morning ahead of the Week 4 action, the main slate, also Monday night probably as well. So plenty more Mike Francesa coming up on the way.
Yeah, and next time, get your questions on Twitter. If you guys want to ask Mike Francesa a question about sports,
He'll do it.
Go for it.
He knows things.
All right, well, a guy that loves to answer your questions, you already know, it's Pat Mayo on the PME. He provides his favorite stacks for Week 4 in the NFL.
The big stacks of the week. I kind of tipped my hand. An Indy game. Indy is running the most plays per just second of any team in the league right now. They're running the fastest pace, the third fastest paced team, almost regardless of game situation, is Houston. They haven't had a lead yet this year, so maybe that has a lot to do with it. But it's just going to be a fast game. It's indoors, on a track, two quarterbacks that are going to throw a lot. Like, neither one of these run games is overly good. The defenses are kind of solid, but not great by any stretch of the imagination. I think there could be big plays in this game. I think both quarterbacks are viable. I prefer the stack offensively with the Texans because I think it's more concentrated in that regard. But you can bring back Hilton, you can bring back Grant if you wanted to. If Doyle sits, you can just play Ebron either way if you wanted. Naheem Hines is a cheap piece. And both defenses, I think, are viable in this matchup because, like I mentioned, it's just going to be a lot of passing a lot of the time. Neither offensive line is very good. That I just think this could be a points galore type game.
I have no problem with that. I do see the appeal. It's in the dome, can get up and down, and there's cheap pieces, which is, stacks are one thing, but it is tricky, and I know the Saints make it work. But when you're allocating $25,000 for 3 players, sometimes that's brutal. You really needed to get up and down. So I'm with you in that game. Obviously, the Giants game is going to be popular, and I'll throw in the Dalton, the Falcons game. I think that another one inside. Pretty appealing game. I don't think everyone will be on it, and there's pieces on both teams that I think you can use.
Well, do you prefer Tyler Boyd more if AJ Green plays or sits?
Plays. I was on him last week. That worked out great, but this is a situation where I don't. If he is playing that number one receiver role, he looked very good, but I would actually like him to play second fiddle. The targets are still there, even though. That's a team I don't mind targeting. I kind of like AJ Green if he plays.
I don't know if I like AJ Green if he plays. I just really worry about that groin injury.
Yeah, it's scary. We'll have to wait and see on how he is. But if he's good to go, I can tell you right now, I'm definitely going to have some exposure to him with Dalton and Gio and try to mix it up like that.
So my favorite game stacks of the week, just pure game stack. I like that not Tennessee. I do not like that game as a game stack. I think
don't do that.
I think that's like that reeks of like 17-14 for whoever. But Houston, Indianapolis, I really like. You mentioned that Atlanta and Cincinnati game. I like both running backs in that game, and more so obviously if Devonta Freeman ends up sitting. But can you see that New Orleans Giants game? Like, there's something off about that game to me. Like, I can't quite peg what it is. But we could get like it's the first time the Saints have been outdoors all season. Like, they're only 3-point favorites in that game, and it really feels like they're 80 times better than the Giants. So that's kind of bizarre. Do we see more of a game this week with them in New York like we saw week 2 when they played the Browns?
It does feel like a trap. I'm not super high on the Saints in general. Not that I predicted this kind of start. Certainly not. I think it gets moving. The problem for me is just stack. I'll put it like this. When I look to a game to stack, it's not just do I think it will be high scoring. It's the opportunity cost of paying specific salaries. And with the Saints, they're so polarizing because they use 2 guys. I mean, they have the highest priced receiver and running back. It makes it tougher. So I'm with you. In terms of stackability, that's not my favorite game. I obviously will try to get up to those guys if I can afford it. But I have a tough time pairing like Brees Kamara, Michael Thomas, Sterling Shepard. I don't know how viable that is.
So I guess the other teams you can look to stack just because of the implied team totals that they have. The Packers are ones that just no one's really kind of all in on, although they're the biggest favorites on the slate. They're at home and they should score a ton of points. The Chargers are the other one. Like, those two are the 2 biggest favorites. And maybe that makes things awkward depending on, and there's so many guys on those teams that they're not super expensive, at least to the point of where the Saints are at, but there are more guys to choose from. So you give yourself a larger spread to get it wrong.
Yeah. You don't have salary as concentrated, like a team like the Chargers. There's a ton of weapons. You mentioned Mike Williams when we were talking tight ends, even though he's a wide receiver, they do use him like that. And that complicates it. We'll see if Benjamin plays. I don't think he's going to be a factor anyway. But yeah, Keenan Allen. Those are the type of teams, though. They have a huge team total. The spread makes it tough to run someone back sometimes, but I think that that's kind of an appealing spot. You can load up and maybe not get that ownership that some of these other teams will garner.
All right, thanks, Mayo. We understand you guys are still sweating out your lineups for Sunday's NFL slate. Let's welcome back the Pigskin experts, DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and
Get comfy,
Reed
Jeff.
Fowler. We have a little surprise at the end of this segment, so stay tuned. These guys know what we're talking about.
Well, it's just
the
one
viewers don't really
one of our favorite things. No, if you're a loyal viewer on a Friday, you do know. And if you are not, then welcome into the glory.
Hope Reed's ready.
That is, he's never ready. All right, let's play some over-under first, fellas, for the NFL. Bengals QB Andy Dalton. He's averaging about 22 DK points. The Red Rocket going up against a banged-up Atlanta Falcons secondary, or Falcons, as Jeff might say, allowing 27 points to quarterbacks on average. Over or under, Ulrich, 25 fantasy points for Dalton.
I'm going to begrudgingly say over here. You just look at the spot and who Atlanta is down and the weapons that Andy Dalton has to work with. And I think he can get there. I mean, Gio Bernard, not really a true workhorse back either. So it's hard to picture him necessarily stealing all the scores on the ground. So I think most of the Bengals offense.
You got it.
Yeah, there he is.
You're in my head, Kaufman. You're in it. I can't stand it. I think most of the Bengals offense is going to come through the air here. AJ Green's healthy. Tyler Eifert. I think Dalton might sneak over 25 DK points.
What kind of tea leaves are you reading here?
Yeah, he's in my head too, and he didn't even he made fun of me. But yeah, I'm going to say over here as well. I mean, if you look at Dalton, the naysayers will say that, well, he's only hit it once in 2016 and once in 2017. But if you look at those, it's really not matchup dependent, right? He did it once against Philly in 2016, who was the 12th best overall defense, and then Cleveland last year, obviously, we know how bad they were then. So Dalton will do that. I mean, Jeff hit the nail on the head. This Atlanta defense, or Falcons defense, as Jeff says, is really not that good. What you have there, though, is you have True Font going up against Green, right? And Green's dealing with a bone-on-bone bruise, whatever that means.
No, it hurts.
And, he doesn't scare you as much. He's PFF's 49th ranked cornerback, which is decent, but still, right? This defense wants to keep everything in front of them. So Gio Bernard, you're going to see a lot of those passes and completions going to Gio, going underneath Eifert, is a potential flyer play that we all touted earlier in the show or earlier this week. If you're looking for bye weeks and season long to cover Jordan Reed, Eifert's decent. And Dalton's averaging 2.6 touchdowns per game. So you would think that with those completions, touchdowns, that he hits this over. So begrudgingly as well, over.
All right, Giants rookie sensation Saquon Barkley has been pretty darn consistent through 3 weeks, 22 fantasy points so far per game. Just a little over that. Over under 22 puntos this week at home versus the struggling Saints defense, Reed.
I like that sassy stance you have there, Glasheen. I'm gonna say under.
Like
there it is. Go back.
Leads off the segment, making fun of you guys. I stay completely
I did that.
out of it.
I enjoy it.
No, we can give it back to him. You ready? Here's the funny, just so the viewers know, here's the really funny thing about Reed. He's the first person, Ulrich, you'll appreciate this. Reed's the first person in the history of this program to come into the studio here wearing something nicer than what he decided to wear on camera. He looks so much better before the show. It's really pretty impressive.
He looked like Fitzpatrick.
We just have to dress down for the sweat.
I know. This is not the Sunday sweat, so I got dressed. It's casual
All right,
Friday.
hey Reed, focus on Saquon,
please.
please.
You're casual. You got it.
Yeah, Saquon. I'm going to say under here. Look at the Saints defense, right? They're pretty good. They're, I think, fourth best. Or fourth worst for opposing running backs. They're only giving up about 2.76 yards per attempt. Look, Saquon really, it's not a product of his talent, but it's really a product of how bad that offensive line is. He's seeing an uptick of close to 10 targets per game, 15 attempts, right, 9 targets. So you're going to see him in the pass game quite a bit until this Giants offensive line shores. I still think he does well, right? I still think he gets about 20 DK fantasy points. He gets rid of those averages, about 15 attempts, 80 yards. And he's going to pick up receiving yards, too. He can get a touchdown. So 22, I think, is a little steep. I'm going to say around 19, 20, so a little under.
How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll say under, too. I mean, the Saints have been weirdly effective at stopping the running backs, considering how many points they've allowed. And The Giants still have O-line issues. If Barkley does hit the over, it'll be purely through PPR points, in my opinion. But I'll take the under here. I really feel like Odell, Sterling Shepard, that's the way to target this game.
All right, let's move it along. Davante Adams and the Packers, home against the Bills. He's also on my fantasy team, so gentlemen, please be kind. Adams has logged at least 18 fantasy points. No, not selfish. I'm informed. I want to know what's happening
Nice.
with
You know
my
who's
guys.
on your team.
Yeah, that's right. I'm knowledgeable of my roster. I couldn't tell you everybody. At least 18 fantasy points in each of Green Bay's 3 games, guys. So easy one. Over, under, 18 points for Adams Sunday at Lambeau. Reed, do I play him?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, right? You drafted him as your receiver 1. And yes, he does have a bad matchup in terms of his cornerback, right? He's going up against Tre'Davious White, who's been pretty good. We saw him, shut down the Diggs and company in Minnesota. And so he does have a bad matchup. But look at his matchups over the past 3. He's probably had one of the hardest receiver to cornerback matchup. He's got Xavier Rhodes, Josh Norman, Will Fuller, Prince Mukamara, these guys who are pretty good cover cornerbacks. And yet he's still seeing 9 targets. He's still seeing a touchdown per game. When you have an implied team total of 27 points, you're going to think at least one of those touchdowns is going to hit him. And if he gets that other touchdown, sure, at 18 points, I think that's a lock. So, yeah, over.
G-off?
I'd be inclined to say under. Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers could definitely hit the over here. But I think if I had to go one side, go under. I think this might be more of a Jimmy Graham spot. Reed alluded to the sort of more elite corners that the Bills have actually do feature. It's not the greatest matchup for Adams, and I could see Jimmy Graham, maybe Ty Montgomery, maybe Geronimo Allison getting a little bit more work here. So, it could definitely hit the over. It wouldn't shock me at all, but I think I'd be more inclined to say under here.
I do not appreciate your thoughts.
Get over it.
Too bad.
All right, let's go to a former member of the Packers, Raiders tight end, Jared Cook. He had a monster week 1, 30 DK fantasy points. He was a waiver wire pickup for many. He had that against the Rams, but since he's had back-to-back single-digit fantasy games, over under 10 points out of Cook this week. How's my stance, Reed?
Less sassy.
Stance is good. I appreciate that. Good base, good foundation.
Kind of cowboy-like.
I'm going to say under, right? This is vintage Jared Cook. He goes off for a big game, and then everyone gets on him. He gets owned by everyone in season long, and then he puts up these stinkers, right? In 2016, over 10 games, he's hit double digits twice. In 2017, in 16 games, he averaged only 8 DK fantasy points, and 11 of 16 games, he didn't hit double digits. Now, okay, we'll say that the matchup. If the matchup is nice, maybe Jared Cook. You got Cleveland, who's doing really well against tight ends, right? They're 4th worst for tight ends, only allowing 6 DK fantasy points per game. He is the top receiver in Oakland, which tells you that Oakland's not really doing much, and they're feeding the ball to Marshawn Lynch, who isn't a good spot this weekend. But Jared Cook going over 10 points, I'm going to say under.
All right, how about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic Jared Cook line. He reels everyone in. He's reeled everyone in. And I assume there will still be some people who play him this week because, Cleveland has traditionally been poor against tight ends. Reed's right. I mean, they're much better this year so far. We've only played 3 games, right? Lots of room to regress. So I don't know. Cleveland's favored by a bit in this game. They could definitely get out to a lead, and then Jared Cook could put in some trash time and hit the over, but I'd be inclined to say under too. There's no point in me trusting it. We've seen different receivers go off every week for Oakland, so it's also hard to pinpoint exactly who's going to get the ball here. I'd be more inclined to say Jordy. Maybe it's Cook, but I'm still going to take the under for this week.
What's crazy with Jared Cook, too, is he averages more targets away than at home. If you go back to Green Bay and even Oakland, he's averaging more targets away. Again, it's like Jeff was saying, too, like Cleveland's rush, too, their pass rush, again, something that Oakland is severely in need of, is really good. So he might get those dump-offs, but you see Jalen Richard as the 2nd highest receiver on that team. So not a receiver, but the 2 guys. So maybe, but again, this is vintage Jared Cook, so no.
All right, well, it is a Friday. While we didn't have time to go through a full segment, we can't let Reed get out of here without making a slate-approved pick for this weekend's Canadian Football League. Slate, you got to do it. It's always one of my favorite things. Want your thoughts afterwards, Jeff? Want to make sure that Reed knows what he's talking about, because usually not so much. Go ahead, Reed, wow him. Name a guy you just heard of for the first time today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's not true. This is one of my favorite sports. I've been watching it since I was a kid. Growing up in Hawaii, we get CFL quite a bit.
Yeah,
that's not true.
Nope.
But I wanted to go to Jeremiah Masoli if I had one slate-approved pick. Right, I've been trying to tout this guy this entire time, but just his matchup is bad. So I'm actually going to. I wanted to go to a University of Hawaii product, Alex Green, which
who wouldn't?
Jeff also alluded to. He's on IR. I'm actually taking his backup, Johnny James White IV at 5,400. That game, right? Slate approved. That game is, I think, a 51 implied game total. Is at 5,400. He's got 21 touches that last game. If you look at other games that you want to pay up for in Edmonton, right? That 56 implied game total, you want to stack those guys. You have to pay down somewhere. So if I can get a lead dog at 5,400, getting close to 16 to 18 touches a game, 5,400, slate approved.
Remember, Reed, the longer you talk, it doesn't make you right.
He's a good value. I'll give you that. I think you're missing a couple spots, though, Reed. Reggie Bagleton, Bagleton and cheese, cream cheese. Calgary's down their top receiver. He's been going off. He's only 7,500. Then you got Byron Mitchell for the Edmonton Eskimos. They're down Darrell Walker. He's been going off, too. So I'd rather take both those guys if you can fit them in. But White's going to get the carries at the very least.
You got to find those Eskimos, man. Pry them right out of those igloos and get to work.
That's just nearsighted.
Yeah,
Come on now.
Terrible.
All right, guys.
So you'll feed my polar bear. See ya.
I don't think nearsighted means what he thinks it means.
Yeah, he's lost.
Are we all?
Jeff, Reed,
Friday,
thank you very much. You guys have great weekends.
All right, guys.
We mentioned earlier there's preseason hoops down in North Carolina, Celtics and Hornets tonight. Also, there's some racing down there this weekend. Here's DK Live's Pierce Dietrich and his NASCAR price check for the Bank of America 500 in Charlotte.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Charlotte. Whose salary jumped up this week? AJ Allmendinger, 6,500 up to 7,700. He's a road racer. It's a road race. If he doesn't wreck, he's going to get a top 5, maybe even a win this week. Jimmy Johnson, 7,900 up to 8,600. Remember a month ago on the Price Check, I said he was finished. Nothing has changed. Nothing at all. Regan Smith, 5,700 up to 6,400. I do not like the price, but honestly, no one knows what to expect from the Roval. This could be a survivor race, and these punts might just work. Whose salary dropped this week? Eric Jones, 9,300 down to 7,400. In 4 road course races, he's got 3 top 10s. He is a road ringer. Bubba Wallace, 6,200 down to 5,400. He wrecked in the Roval test in July. I kind of think he's gonna wreck again. Ryan Newman, 8,100 down to 7,300. The last 2 years at the road courses, he is averaging a 20th place finish. Hey, it might be a wreck fest, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him sneak away with a top 5. Favorite play of the week, Martin Truex Jr., 11,100. He's the best road course racer in NASCAR, and if this is somehow a legitimate race, then he's going to score a lot of fantasy points. Michael McDowell, 6,100. Welcome to McDowell Chalk Week. He is a road racer, and each of the last 4 Watkins Glen races, he's finished 20th or better. All right, guys, check out the DK Playbook for your DFS information and needs if you got NASCAR questions. Hit me up on Twitter at RaceForThePrize. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Catch me on DK Live.
All right, hello. We're back.
Yes, we are. Good to see you.
You too.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted
Oh,
to
I
say?
did. Yeah, sorry. The Angels. we just talked about this during the break. Angels and A's are playing tonight, gentlemen. Greg and Matt LaMarca are back with us here. The Oakland Athletics are going to have Mike Fiers not starting tonight. He could come out of the bullpen in relief. So just a news note for your lineups tonight. Adam, carry along.
It's important that you guys be aware. Taking you up to many first pitches in the majors tonight. That means the show is almost over. Maybe for the best, actually. I was going to say that's a shame, but I think it's probably a good thing based on where we're at.
I'm not crying. You're crying. There are tears of joy, hopefully. Baseball crew returns. Matt LaMarca of the Action Network and DK Live's Greg Ehrenberg, their second reintroduction of this segment.
We need one pick from each tier for DK's Tears Contest, guys. So who you got in Tier 1, all right? Mookie Betts, JD Martinez, Tommy Pham, Jose Ramirez, Christian Yelich, all options, Greg.
Yeah, well, it really is a Friday. One thing I'm just going to add on to what you said about Mike Fiers is that there are reports that Fiers is going to come in the second inning. Trevino's just going to pitch the first inning. So not really too much of a major difference in terms of how I would view those games. In terms of tier 1, I'm going to go with Christian Yelich here. He's probably going to win the NL MVP. Personally, if I had a vote, I would go with Jacob deGrom, but I don't think it's significant. But going on with Yelich, he's really been the best hitter in baseball since the All-Star break. 22 homers, leads the National League, 210 WRC+, and there's a reason that he's the highest priced hitter at 6,000 in the regular game mode.
Greg, thanks for your housekeeping, by the way, on that pitching news.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Matt, what's up?
Well, I was going to knock him for his lighting. You know, you guys always get on me about my lighting. I'm the best lit guy on the segment right now.
He's a little shaded. He's not as bright as you are there, pal.
He knows the way to my heart with that Jacob MVP talk. I totally agree. I'm going to go with Mookie Betts here. I know the Red Sox technically have nothing to play for, but if you think they're just going to roll over against the New York Yankees, their hated rival, then you don't know the Red Sox. They're facing a quality pitcher in Happ, but Betts just absolutely destroys left-handed pitchers. He's averaged over 18.5 DK points versus lefty starters in Fenway this season. So he's also in really good StatCast form, so just give me all the Mookie Betts here tonight.
All right, let's go to tier number 3. This one's interesting to me because you guys talked about a guy in this tier to start the show. Charlie Blackmon is in tier 3. Andrew Benintendi, Aaron Judge, Alex Bregman, Ronald Acuna Jr., Freddie Freeman. Matt, let's go back to you. How do you feel about Blackmon?
Yeah, he's my pick. I mean, I already said I think he's the top overall hitter on the slate, so I'm not going to beat that drum again, but he would be my guy in this tier.
A follow-up maybe, if it's not Charlie Blackmon?
Oh,
then why would he?
Who am I choosing between again?
Bregman, Acuna, Benintendi, Aaron Judge. Blackmon.
Give me Judge, I guess, if I'm not
why
taking.
You stick with Blackmon? You
Sorry,
like,
man.
You like Blackmon.
If I'm not taking Blackmon, you put me on the spot
don't
there.
Let him throw you. You've made your pick. No, you don't need a backup.
I'm just saying.
All right, cool.
Blackmon earlier in the show.
Blackmon it is.
I was looking for a follow-up thought. Hey, Greg, how about you? Tier 3.
It's Blackmon with no pivots. This is 100% confident. You lock him in here. So, I mean, if you look at the other guys in the tier, he's the only one playing at Coors Field. That's almost enough for me to get him the nod. Matt and I have both already called him our favorite hitter on the slate, so we can't really pivot off him here.
Okay, clarity. See, that's all it was. Just trying to promote extra clarity that Blackmon is the guy.
He's indisputably the guy. So let's go to tier 5, where, guys, I want you to hear this long list and give me your second, third, and fourth choices as well. Xander Bogaerts, Miguel Andujar, Nolan Arenado, Carlos Gonzalez. Don't look at me that way. Edwin Encarnacion, George Springer, Nicholas Castellanos, Domingo Santana, and anyone else DK wants to try and wedge in here. It's a long list. Greg, what do you have?
All right, so for me, it's Arenado here. Like I've said, I want as much exposure to Coors Field as possible. So the two guys that I'm looking at here would either be Nolan Arenado or Carlos Gonzalez. And the reason I lean Arenado is just because of how often the Rockies pinch hit for Cargo. Cargo does hit right-hand pitching better than Arenado does, but just the chance that I think we're probably going to get 1 or 2 extra plate appearances from Arenado to me is enough to put him over the top.
All right, so Arenado or Gonzalez. Who's your third choice? I'm just kidding.
I'll give you this.
Kidding.
My least favorite choice is Domingo Santana.
All right, there you go. See, we got the pecking order. Matt.
I don't think Springer's in the lineup either, so you can put him as a
good. Cross him off.
As a guy
right out of
be at the
Major
bottom
League.
of the list.
I think this guy's dead. Cross him off then.
Listen, I really tried not to pick a Rocky here. I think the Rockies are obviously going to be the chalk. Like, for sure, if you go with Blackmon and Arenado, you're probably picking the two most highest owned players in those tiers, but I really can't get around it. I think Arenado is just the only player in this tier that I'm really comfortable with. He isn't great against right-handed pitchers, but he's going to be batting in a better lineup spot than Carlos Gonzalez. Gregory mentioned that Gonzalez definitely has some pinch hit downside. So I think Arenado's the call. Joe Ross has only made 2 starts this season, but he's got a 6.23 xFIP. That could be real trouble at Coors Field. So the only thing I will say is that if you do go with Blackmon in tier 3 and Arenado in tier 5, you might want to try and throw some curveballs with some of your other selections because you're going to be looking at a chalky lineup.
All right, I got the gist of the jokes. I want a slate-approved pick for tonight's 13-game slate. Let's be quick here. Greg and then Matt.
Chuck Nasty, Charlie Blackmon.
Really likes Blackmon.
Matt?
Big fan.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mookie Betts, actually. I think it's a really interesting spot. He's going to have low ownership with all the focus on cores, so give me Betts against the lefty.
All right, guys. No, feel pretty good about that. We're going to let you guys go, but thanks for playing with us. We'll see you again soon. Don't worry. All right.
Thank you.
You learn anything tonight on the sweat there, kid?
I did. Stick to the question. Is crucial when it comes to the sweat. Clarity is important. And also, I'm sorry I interrupted you at the beginning of the show. I interrupted you doing your makeup.
Yeah, well, listen, you got to stop doing that. I've
I
told
know.
you a million times over. You got to just we'll do the cold open when it's time
Today
to do
you
the
let me
cold
sit
open.
next to you during show prep.
You
so
let
that
me,
was your fault.
like the cool kid at the lunch table or
Yeah.
something like that. I learned that I love doing the CFL segment, and the more of that we can do, the better.
All right, we're going to rest up on Saturday. The sweat is back Sunday prior to all NFL kickoff, 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Sunday. Twitter, Facebook, DraftKings YouTube pages. Check it all out. And you tri-staters, we have an hour-long edition of The Sweat on SNY, 11 to 12 p.m. Eastern. Koff's hosting, so you might consider otherwise, but you should watch. Enjoy your weekend.
Watch, don't listen.